Smell us now, lady.
Welcome to MeatEater Trivia.
MeatEater Podcast.
Welcome to MeatEater Radio Live. It's 11 a.m. Mountain Time on January 9th, and we're live from MeatEater HQ in Bozeman, Montana. I'm your host, Spencer Newarth, joined today by Brody Henderson and Giannis Putelis. On today's show, we'll interview Matt Daniels about a 7-year quest to track down the mount of his dad's record book deer. Then we've got show and tell, followed by a hot tip-off. And finally, we'll talk to Ben Dedimonte about an elk hunt where 4 arrows wind up in the same bull. Brody, 4 of them. We're going to get to the whole thing at the end. It's a wild over-the-counter experience that I think few have had, but most have probably had nightmares about. How'd you boys spend Christmas break?
Eating, drinking, hanging out with fun people, getting outside, living the life.
Oh, okay.
It's pretty much, it's the best.
You probably describe yourself that way anytime, not just Christmas break, right?
I feel like I'm pretty lucky, pretty fortunate, as I think everybody in this room should feel the same way.
Good on you, Yanni. How about you, bro? Do you do anything exciting when
Same
we get
thing.
coming to the office?
Got a lot of bird hunting in, which was nice. It's kind of a bittersweet time of year because it's like the end of hunting season. At least for those of us that aren't Giannis that just get to hunt all year long.
Yeah. This is a time of year when I get very motivated about finding my next permission, about finding my next
you got time
tag
to do
I
it,
want
right?
to get. Yeah. And I'm like, I'm just thirsty for more of that, and I can't do it. Yeah.
It'll be turkey season before you know it.
Yanni, you just had a successful hunt, though, yesterday, as we sit here talking about not hunting anymore.
I did. Mingus, my buddy Jake, and Pip and Helen. I actually went up one canyon and walked this track for a half a mile. I keep looking at it. I'm like, son of a bitch, that's got to be a fox. But I'm like, I'm not seeing the claws, which would tell me it's a fox or a coyote,
Okay.
But at the same time, I can't catch a leading toe to really tell me that it's a bobcat. I keep looking at it. And
You had it narrowed down to those 3 things, though.
I was thinking fox or bobcat
Okay.
because it was pretty small.
Is it deep snow making it like hard to tell?
No, it was on the trail, and sometimes, when you're out, not under trees, it was a couple inches, but just under the trees, it might have been just a skiff. So I got all versions of this track because I walked. He was on the trail for a half a mile. Turns out it was a she. And luckily, I took a picture and sent it to Jake because we hadn't hooked up yet. And I'm like, what do you think, Fox? But the picture doesn't go through, and he keeps texting me back. I didn't get the picture. I'm like, I think it's a fox. So I check another canyon, and then I drive to meet him at a separate canyon. And right when I get there, the picture finally goes through, and he's like, dude, bobcat, let's go back to there. I'm like, all right, let's go.
Do they have the same kind of gait? Fox and bobcat?
No, it's more like a lion, where they direct register,
Right.
where they place each pad in the next pad.
Are there any other clues besides a track that you could come across? Like, what if you found some crap? Would that give you any clues or no?
Not me.
Okay.
Maybe some other expert.
Yeah.
But no, it's all in the track, in the gait, and the length of the gait, the stride.
So you guys go back to
But yeah,
the
we go
OG
back
track.
there and to cut the dogs loose on it, and they run it for, I don't know, not far, 400 yards, and they actually went back towards the truck, and they were basically 300 yards above the truck, and they treat it all together, which I explained in the post yesterday I put on the Instagram that Mingus hasn't caught a bobcat yet on his own, and it's a big deal. They're a lot harder to catch than a lion.
Okay.
Much, much harder. I can explain if you like. But so that hasn't happened yet. Last time we caught a bobcat, it was again with Jake and these same dogs. And I've talked about this before. They're superstars. I mean, it's like when you go out with them, you're getting to play, pick up ball on your team. You've got LeBron and MJ. And last time, Mingus was 5 to 10 minutes late getting to the tree.
Okay.
In a way, it was good because he instead of me tooing and hearing the dogs bark and treat and picking up his head and running over there and going, "Yeah!"
You got to find a better term for that than me too. Carry on.
You know what I mean, though.
Uh-huh.
He keeps to the track and works the track all the way to the tree and then goes, "All right, yeah, sweet, I'm here too." Well, yesterday, according to the GPS, they all got there together. They all treed together. And so I feel like I could give Mingus credit for like a legit Bobcat catch.
Yeah, let's officially award that one to Mingus.
Yeah.
And then you shot it.
I shot it.
Okay.
About a 15-pound female. Beautiful. And yeah, Jake's going to come over tonight and help me tube skin it.
How often are you passing on bobcats when you tree one? Never?
We haven't treed one.
Okay.
Now, Jake, who hunts a lot more than I do, I don't know how many he's treed. He said he's only killed one this winter, but I'm guessing he's probably treed 10 others, and he's let them all go because they were probably either females or too small. Mm-hmm. He's looking to kill mature male.
And Phil has now pulled up the video of the end of the hunt.
No, this is the mountain lion hunt from the week prior.
Okay.
Oh, sorry, Giannis.
No, that's okay.
Do you ever get a bobcat or anything up a tree and you just can't find it up there because it's hidden from view?
Funny you say that, especially with bobcats. And I found that out it's like 3 weeks ago when my wife and I went and we treed a mountain lion female and her kitten. The kitten was a couple hundred yards away in a different tree. And a thing that it's a problem with Mingus because he trees them on the scent, right? He's like, I know they went to this tree, track goes up this tree, but I can't see him. He trees hard for about an hour just on that scent.
Okay.
And then when he can't find it, he starts to lose confidence and he wants to be treeing or wants to be running a track or something. So he starts running the track back out and searching, coming back to the track. So when we went to the kitten's tree, I'm walking up to it going, man, he slick treed me, which is the term meaning that your dog is barking treed, but there's nothing in it. I had to get all the way around the tree and get eye level with that kitten until I could find it. But I was able to do that and only be 15 feet from it. This bobcat yesterday, it took Jake and I walking around in circles for probably 15, 20 minutes.
No way.
Until we finally spotted it.
Did the dog see it the whole time?
They never saw it.
Okay.
And so they kind of had done, before we got there, they had left the tree, tried to, thinking that there must be a different out. So they ran back on the same trail.
Yep.
Kind of searched around for a little bit 100 yards away and then said, nope, it's this way. And they came back to the tree. Eventually, what happens if they're there long enough, and if you have the right wind, scent, thermal conditions, the scent from that animal will drop down. And he's 30 yards up there. I mean, he's 90 feet up in a tree, way up there. But that scent drops down, and all of a sudden it hits them. So they'll be kind of searching around on the ground a little bit like, I don't know. And then all of a sudden that scent will hit them, and all three of them, boop, 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 just blow up on it. And then they'll tree hard for 15 minutes. But if the wind changes a little bit, they don't. But it was snowing. And when I realized too, the scope I had, it wouldn't focus close enough, like it wasn't a rimfire scope, and so I couldn't get the parallax to focus at like 30 yards.
Yeah.
So that made it a little bit difficult, but ended up with a good shot, and one shot killed it.
Okay. Working your way up to being not MJ or LeBron, but Nikola Jokic maybe?
Mingus?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's doing good.
Someday soon. All right, joining us on the line first is Matt Daniels, who went on a 7-year quest to track down the mount of his dad's record book whitetail. Matt, welcome to the show.
How's it going, guys?
What's up, Matt? First thing, tell us about your dad killing this deer.
Well, so my dad started bow hunting back in the early 90s and never was much of a trophy hunter. Didn't really care about the size of the antlers or anything. We're in it to provide for the family. And he happened to go into a property one day and climbed up in a cedar tree, was just sitting on a cedar limb with his bow in his lap. That thing came walking through.
That's amazing. And this happened in, 1995, correct?
95, that's correct.
Okay, so your dad, he recognizes this as a big buck, but maybe doesn't understand the full scope of what just happened. So he does get the deer mounted, right?
Yeah, he did. He got it originally. Okay,
so he has it mounted, kills it in 1995, and then tell us what happens in 2000.
Yeah, so somewhere in 2000, this is still before I was born, he ended up selling the mount to a collector.
And then, before you were born, at what point do you find out that this deer ever existed and that your dad killed this thing?
I think it was 2017. He pulled a Polaroid picture out of his dresser drawer and was showing it to me. And that was the first time I'd ever seen any pictures of it. And so, photo there. I started asking him, like, man, what did that thing score? Because you can tell from the picture that's just a giant deer. And he had never had it scored until the person that he sold it to came and scored it. And he remembered it being 200 inches net. And I was like, there's no way. Like, that's a state record if that's the case, you know. So I took that picture, posted it on a Facebook in a Kansas hunting and fishing group, just asking, you know, does anybody know about this deer? And within 24 hours, I was in contact with the person who owned it.
And so 24 hours later, you're talking to the current owner of the mount. What happened then?
Yeah, so from there, I reached out to him, sent him a copy of that picture to prove that it was the same deer. And from there, we actually mailed handwritten letters back and forth for a little while, kind of discussing it, you know, if he would ever think about selling it. And he finally got back with me on that and told me he'd sell it back to us, but the price was right at $40,000.
And do you know how he acquired the buck? What was the chain of events that wound up with this antler collector? I think he was in Maine, right? How did it wind up that he ever had this thing?
Yeah, so as far as I know, it had been sold over the years a couple different times, and he ended up buying it from another collector.
Okay, so he offers to sell it to you for $40,000. When he said $40,000, did you expect that to be the price? And did he sort of act like, I'm doing you guys a favor by offering to sell it to you for $40,000? Or was that what he would have sold it to me or Yanni as well?
I mean, he made it seem like he was only going to sell it to us because he believed, you know, it belonged to us since my dad was the person who harvested it. But that price at that time, it was a heart shock. You know, I was only 60 years old at that time, so $40,000 to me just sounded completely impossible.
Yeah, but you do manage to scrape a little bit of money together, right?
Yeah, so I kind of kept everybody up to date on the post on Facebook because there was a lot of people following along with the story. And a lot of guys were telling me, you know, they were willing to throw in $20, $50, and they're like, why don't you start a GoFundMe or something? And I was like, there ain't no way, there's no point. But they talked me into doing it, and I ended up raising about $15,000 towards it.
So $15,000. Do you make a $15,000 offer at that point?
No, I mean the guy at the time that owned it, he told me he wasn't going to budge on that price. So after a month or so of the GoFundMe being up and everything kind of went stale, I came to the realization that price wasn't going to work out for me. So
okay, and at that point, Matt, it gets sold a second time while you're tracking this deer, right?
Yeah, so when I reached back out to the current owner at that time and told him, you know, that I wasn't going to be able to come up with the money, he went ahead and sold it to another collector.
And what was it like dealing with that collector? Because you sort of went through the same process again of trying to buy it or trying to get a replica, right?
Yeah, so I reached out to the new owner that just purchased it, and he's a pretty well-known antler collector in Ohio. And he didn't really want to work with me too much. He confirmed that he did own it, sent me a bunch of current pictures of it, which it was just the skull cap at that time. And then I talked to him about getting a replica. He kind of said it wasn't going to be a possibility, and I kind of messaged him back and forth for a couple years, and he didn't ever really want to help out too much.
So it feels like, again, Matt has hit a dead end. And you guys should watch this episode of MeatEater Radio on YouTube because here's a spoiler. We can see the mount in the background of Matt. So this antler collector in Ohio now has it, but not for long, and it gets sold a third time during your pursuit.
Yep. So after about 2 or 3 years of talking to this collector, he finally messaged me back one day and pretty much said, I don't own it anymore. Bass Pro has it. So from there, I'm thinking, well, maybe I'll at least be able to see it whenever rack in my life at this time. So I started to try to reach out to Bass Pro, and that was a task on it.
And so when Bass Pro has it, do you know what they were doing with it at that point? Like, where were they displaying it?
So I was told it was supposed to be on display at the Wonders of Wildlife Museum at their Springfield, Missouri headquarters. And I called that location. They said they couldn't really release any information of what antlers were on display there. So I had a couple buddies that ended up going there, and they kind of FaceTimed me through the whole thing, and it was not on display. This was probably about 6 months after I was told that it was supposed to be. So at this point, I'm like, does Bass Pro even actually have this rack? You know, is the guy just lying to me, whatnot?
How did you end up even tracking down the right person to talk to at Bass Pro?
Yeah, so pretty much it was another year, I think, year and a half or so of just calling locations, leaving emails, leaving voicemails, and I never got a response back. I pretty much just spent, a few minutes on a work, every month just calling and leaving a voicemail, sending another email. And then just randomly this September, I got an email back. And I honestly thought it was a scam email, but there was an email from a person with Bass Pro regarding information on this deer.
Okay, and it must have been good news because, again, this mount is sitting right behind you. What did they have to say?
Yeah, so at first they just confirmed that they did own it and that the antlers were not on display and the real rack not planned to be on display. I don't really know behind that. But they told me I was able to get a replica and I would have to work with a replica antlers by Klaus. So they got me in contact with that company. And then from there, I just worked with them on getting a replica made.
And shortly thereafter, the thing showed up at your front door.
Yep. They definitely worked with me. I think the average time for the replica is around 3 months to 4 months, and I had it at my door in 5.
Okay, so 5 weeks later, he gets the rack. What is the hide on the deer? You've obviously found some other skin to wrap around this mount. What is that?
So once I found out that I was going to get a replica made, when I found out when I was going to get it, now I was on a mission to find a cape for the mount. And I thought it'd be really cool to use a cape from a deer that I harvested on my dad's deer, just sentimental reasons. So now I was out on a mission to harvest a good mature deer to get a cape for it. And that's what I did.
There you go. Well, it looks magnificent. Now, at some point along the way, Matt, this deer gets entered in the Boone and Crockett record books, right?
Yep. It's entered as Bass Pro as the owner and my dad, Albert.
Tell us about the details of this buck, some of the measurements that would make a whitetail hunter's jaw drop.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's a 200-inch tentacle, so there's a lot of
Yeah, he is the perfect deer. He's the type of deer that when a wildlife artist is like drawing a scene that has a whitetail buck in it, they always make a whitetail buck that's just too perfect and too big. And what they're modeling that after, you would think, is this deer that Matt's dad killed.
Yeah, even though when they draw them, I think they're even maybe 80% smaller. Or 20% smaller. Sorry, they're only 80% of that joker. That thing's amazing. Hey, has your dad told you that spot? Have you been to the spot where this deer was harvested?
Yeah, it's actually only about 15 miles from where he still lives, but he's taken me out there. And at the time of the hunt, it was a big cedar farm, just thick cedars everywhere. It's all just row crop now, unfortunately.
And what's your dad's attitude been like throughout this 7-year quest of trying to track this thing down? Has he been super interested, or has he just been like totally disinterested?
I mean, he's thought it was cool. He never really cared that much about getting the replica or getting the rack back. Like I said, he didn't even know it was a state record or how significant of a deer it was until I kind of started getting myself into the story of it. But we surprised him with it Christmas Eve, and he couldn't believe it, man. He was just blown away.
Can you move your camera, Matt, to show us some of the details of this buck? We want to get a real good look at this thing's rack. My goodness. Just perfect all around. Enormous G2s and G3s that are the same length. I imagine like the only deductions on this thing were maybe on the brow tines. Is that right?
Yeah, it's got it gross scores 212 and 3/8, so it's got about 12 inches of deductions, and a lot of it is the G5 here.
Okay.
So he's got like an 1.5 inch G5 on that side, and this side's about 5 or 6 inches.
Amazing deer. We're happy that you were able to track this thing down and that your story had a happy ending. How did your fall go this year, Matt? When I talked to you yesterday trying to line up this interview, you said you needed to wait a few hours before you could call me because you were deer hunting.
Yeah, I was just going out to get a doe last evening, and didn't end up getting one. Seen a few deer across the field, but didn't end up making a shot.
All right, Matt. Well, congrats on tracking down that deer, and good luck with what's left of your whitetail season.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Matt.
7-year quest. I just spent the rest of my life trying to find that buck. If I was Matt, I'm glad that it worked out for him.
Yeah, I'm glad he has that. I was gonna ask him and just didn't get around to it. But how real are those replica antlers? Like, if you don't know that they're replica antlers, will you be fooled?
Well, were you not there when Dustin Huff brought in Moose, his buck?
Yeah.
He brought it to the live show in Cleveland,
Yeah,
I think it was.
I took a picture with
you'd
it.
have no idea that you were looking at a replica. I think they're so good now that they would fool you, even if you knew you had a 50% chance of guessing whether or not that thing was real or fake. I don't think.
But what if you just had like the skull-capped antlers and it was a replica and you're holding it? Like, do they do the weight?
I imagine it's got to be pretty dang similar.
Yeah.
I can't.
No, I mean, I know on that sheep mount that John Hayes did for me. I mean, you can't tell the weight and everything. I mean, it's spot on.
Yeah, you can see that buck. It sounds like at the Wonders of Wildlife Museum from Bass Pro. I don't think we specifically touched on it there, but in one of the articles that was written about Matt's story, Bass Pro told Matt that the real antlers will never be on display anywhere. They're always going to be hidden away in some storage room. If you go and try to look at that buck of Matt's dad's, which is now officially the Kansas state record for typical whitetails, you're always looking at a replica.
That's sad.
That is sad. I think so too.
They
I'd just
should-
rather not know at that point.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, moving on. Our next segment is show and tell.
MeatEater show and tell. MeatEater show and tell. Whoa. MeatEater show and tell. Spencer brought a rock. What else did you expect?
What another fine jingle from Phil.
Oh,
Yanni, let's
man.
start with you. What did you
Let's
bring
just
for the classroom?
listen to Phil's jingles for a few more minutes.
What
I
did you
brought,
bring to show the classroom today?
well, since we're on the theme of Bobcats,
Oh yeah, that is the theme, huh? Yanni has a live Bobcat in the studio.
I've never properly like done a post about this guy. A lot of people, maybe you can watch the episode where Jake and I go and kill this Bobcat. It's in Montana. Mingus was not in on the catch, but it was such a fine specimen. Jake said that I should definitely kill it and get it mounted.
How heavy was that thing?
25 pounds.
Oh, I was going to guess 28.
On the nose.
That's
yeah.
like upper end. For
That's
a-
beefy.
Oh yeah, monster. I think they get bigger in the Midwest, but what they don't have in the Midwest is a belly like that. I don't know if you can see that, but that is what makes a high dollar Bobcat, is when you have that big, wide, white belly with those beautiful black spots.
I've seen 3 Bobcats in real life out in nature while I was doing something else. They were all half of this size. This thing looks enormous to me.
Oh, the one I killed yesterday was, we guessed it at 15 pounds, so 10 pounds less, and it seemed like it was half the size. But yeah, John Hayes did the taxidermy. It's actually a pillow mount. Clay was up there and did a little video on a coyote that John had that he was doing a pillow mount of. And I thought, man, it'd be great to do a pillow mount because it's hands-on, right? Yeah. And you can change its body positioning because it's got a annealed wire.
Yanni is working this thing around.
I mean, you can totally just...
my goodness,
doesn't look normal when you.
He's making it do the YMCA now.
Yeah,
most taxidermy is look and don't touch, but not this thing.
No, I figure even if the kids that come over to my house rub the hair off of this thing, it'll served its purpose, which is hopefully to get kids interested in wildlife and bobcats. And
those pillow mounts are becoming more and more common.
Yeah, but you can't do them. John says you can't do them on animals much bigger. Than this. Yeah, it just gets harder and harder. And he said that especially for some reason it's very difficult to get a cat to look good in a pillow mount. It's much easier to do a canine for some reason just because of the body structure.
What's that thing filled with to give it that like pillowy sensation? Do you know?
I don't know exactly. I know it's got annealed wire running through as the skeleton, but I don't know what the actual pillow stuffing is.
It's almost like memory foam or something.
Yeah, I mean, it bounces right back.
Yeah, it's satisfying. To squeeze.
The thing I've always been impressed with that one is its face, its head, because it's just so lifelike.
Listen, one of my favorite things to do, I'm trying to position him so that folks can look right into his eyes.
Can we go to a full camera just on them, Phil?
We can't. It's not going to make it any bigger, though.
Okay.
But I will. One of my favorite things to do with this. It used to always sit on top of a bookshelf, so it was about eye level. It was cool up there. But now what I do, my wife loves plants. So there's a lot of plants in the house.
Reach that thing towards the camera to give it a better view. This camera here, Yanni. Keep going. Tell your story.
But I will hide it. This is a hard multitask that you're asking of me, Spencer.
Well, I'll fill in here for a second. You hid it in the studio today.
Yeah, so
I just caught a glance of it coming in through our window, and for half a second it startled me.
Oh, it was curled up under the table when I walked in and staring right at the door. And I walked in and my heart skipped a beat for a second. It was not fun.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I'll place it kind of conspicuously, near under a plant, right? So only half of its body's showing, and you just so it looks like a cat hiding and staring at you. We had a house sitter while we were in Latvia. Come by. People checking on chickens and getting eggs and whatnot. It startled her so bad that she left the fridge door open and damn near killed my fridge because she just ran out of the house. She didn't want anything to do with this thing. But yeah, it's amazing. Like, it gets people every time. Like, Phil just saw it underneath the table.
Did she think it was real?
I don't know what she thought, but she didn't want to investigate.
Find out. I wrote an article a few years ago. It was specific to deer taxidermy and shoulder mounts, and like, what should you look for if you're visiting a taxidermist or looking at a taxidermist's work and you want to be confident that they're good at their job. And they had mentioned a handful of things. The three that stuck out to me were all regarding the face, and it was about the eyes, the nose, and the ears. And those three things on this pillow just look fabulous.
Oh, it's amazing.
That's why it makes people's hearts skip a beat when they see the damn thing.
Yeah.
Are you getting yesterday's cat just tanned?
Yeah, I'm just going to tube skin it.
Yeah.
And hang it up somewhere in the house, and then when Bobcat fur prices get real high, I'm going to cash in. That's my plan.
That was a good item to bring in for show and tell. Brody, what do you got with you today?
Oh, Spencer, I'm going to take you back to a time when people didn't waste their time watching Yellowstone and Squid Game, and they read books. Big books.
That is an enormous book.
Wow.
Yeah.
The Bobcat's kind of in the way there.
Yeah.
This one?
Brody has two enormous books with him today, stacked on top of each other.
I inherited these from my dad.
They got to be about 10 inches tall.
Yeah. Both of these were published in the mid-'60s. This is the New Hunter's Encyclopedia.
Oh, wow.
Not new anymore. But I used to have the dust jacket for it, but it fell apart.
Have you read this thing?
Oh, yeah, man. That's why I brought them.
Okay.
When I was a kid, I spent countless hours reading both of these. This one is McLean's Standard Fishing Encyclopedia.
Oh.
And it's like extensive, man. And the cool thing about looking through these now is the stuff that has changed immensely and the stuff that hasn't changed at all. Just like, because they have everything like in here from like guns and cartridges, you know, and a lot of that stuff's like obsolete now. But yeah, they're awesome.
And the fishing encyclopedia, that thing looks old, but then you put it next to your hunting encyclopedia and it makes it look new.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, maybe this one just got read more.
What year are they from? Do you know?
Mid-60s.
Well, your dad, I like how he labeled the inside of the cover with his name and the year that he got it with like an old school label maker.
Yep.
It's like a piece of Tupperware that you take to potluck.
Yeah,
you wanted to make sure when that thing was making the rounds that it
yeah.
always
So
get back
these
to
are
him.
60-year-old books.
Yeah.
And you can still get them on Amazon. They're not like $1,000 collector items. You can still find them. So yeah, every now and then I pull them out, take a look.
It's very cool. You gonna have your sons thumb through those someday? Learn
Yeah.
about hunting and fishing.
Yeah, I mean, the older one has looked through both of them a little bit, but it's a challenge these days. You got a lot of competition.
All right, last thing for show and tell is what I brought today, and this is one of my favorite whitetails that I have ever killed because he has a super unique rack. I killed this buck on opening day of South Dakota's rifle season in 2016. It was the last 5 minutes of shooting light. It was a blizzard, and this buck was at 100 yards, just showed up at the edge of this cornfield I was hunting. And I didn't have a great look at him. I was like, man, there is something weird with this deer. And I had to decide kind of right then if I was going to shoot him or not. I could see one side. On one side, he has just a perfect standard 5-point antler that looks like millions of deer walking around North America right now. That was the side I had a very good look at. And I was trying to pick up what was happening on his other side. And I didn't have a great idea until after I had actually shot him and got up to him. And then I still didn't fully understand it until I had skinned him, just what was going on here. So one side, the standard 5-point side. The other side, he has this mutant little 4-point antler. And then underneath that, he has what I would consider to probably be an extra main beam. It's a 12-inch dagger that comes out of the same pedicle. And then he's got another 4-inch antler that is crawling across his skull towards his other normal antler. And this thing is just super goofy. I've showed it to some biologists about what do you think happened here? And there's some common answers that they'll give you. One of them is that deer will have, not just deer, but elk as well, moose. They'll have abnormal antler growth if they have an injury to one of their legs because it restricts some blood flow or it messes with their blood vessels. And usually then the other antler opposite of that leg injury will grow something funky. This deer didn't have anything like that. He was totally normal. I've shot deer with limps and gaits and injuries before. This buck seemed quite healthy. So then the other answers that they'll give you is they had an injury to their pedicle down here. And that could have happened while he was in velvet that year. And this might have been just a one-time thing that he threw this rack. Or it could have been permanent damage. I'll never know. I didn't have any history with this buck. But maybe my favorite thing about this deer is that I don't remember when I scored him. I scored him after I had skinned him out. He was in the 140s. But this antler, it was like 60-some inches of antler when you're scoring him. The other antler was only 1 inch difference. They almost scored the exact same thing.
Well, I was just going to say, it's interesting how on that, what would be his right side, you got these dinky little tines here. It's like this.
Careful, that one is kind of loose. He was fighting.
Oh, with this one?
Yeah, that one.
This thing sucked the energy out of this thing.
Totally.
You know what I mean? And
I asked a biologist, I was like, so was he just destined to throw the same amount of antlers no matter how it came out, what shape he was going to grow? And they said, no, that was just a coincidence, more than likely. But this is one of my favorite whitetails that I've ever killed. because
Did you know he existed before you saw him?
Had no history with this deer. He had actually, my dad had a tag that year as well. He was hunting about a half mile away, and this buck had walked by him that evening, and it was through some timber, and he didn't have a good look at it either. And he was with my brother, who did not have a tag, and they both also had a conversation like, what was up with that deer? There was something goofy going on, or like, was there another smaller buck next to him that we just like couldn't get a good look at his antlers? But this is one of my favorite deer I've ever killed. All right, that is it for show and tell today. Let's take a break for some listener feedback. Phil, what's the chat have to say?
Yeah, before we get to that, though, I mentioned this once before, but for those of you who are listening in podcast version now or watching it later, you can get a notification every time we go live on Thursday if you'd like. And it won't give you notifications for everything else we post. So only when the MeatEater Podcast Network YouTube channel goes live, it'll ding. So you'll only get it once a week. That's not bad. You can go to your, if you're subscribed to the MeatEater Podcast Network YouTube channel, you should have a little bell option somewhere if you go to the page, and that's sort of like your notification button. If you click that, you'll get a notification for the whole network, but then you can go into your settings and then just switch it so that you only get a notification for live streams. So if you don't want to miss the episode every Thursday, I recommend doing that. You can also click when I usually post this episode the day before, sometime in the afternoon or evening, so it pops up in your subscription feed. There's a separate button if you just want to get a notification for a single episode of something that's going to be live streamed. There's a little button that says notify me in your subscriptions.
Yeah, so if you can't remember that we go live every Thursday at noon Central Time, follow Phil's directions there.
Sure thing. We have a question from a woman named Linda. She says to ask Spencer about his very first hunt when he fell asleep. Oh, that's Linda Newhart.
Yeah.
What's this story?
That is my mom. I had a youth tag. I was probably 14 years old. I was on a deer hunt. I think it was around Christmas. We had to go to church that night. And I fell asleep while my dad and I were sitting there. And I didn't know this until later. I woke up because a raccoon was walking by at some point. Didn't kill anything. But later on, my dad had told my mom, I don't think Spencer's going to be a hunter. Just don't. I don't think this is for him. So that was my first ever deer hunt, but I proved him wrong.
Great. We have a question from Rashad, who is asking for tips on identifying critter burrows. This is I don't know if you guys have any of these, but I thought I'd ask you. His New Year's resolution is to catch a red fox, but he'll settle for a coyote.
I don't have any tips. Anytime I look at something like, oh, that's a badger or a coyote or a fox, I never have specifics.
Yeah, and a lot of them, I think, will like
change it up,
move into someone else's spot, like different speed. I think tracks.
Yeah, I think you're going to have to find tracks at the mouth to see who's using it.
Yeah,
currently.
Set up a camera right next to it. Who knows?
Or see the damn thing because they go in and out of them often. It's not like they go down there and just don't come back out for 3 days.
And this is a follow-up to Brody's show and tell segment, but Free Crank is asking, what piece of literature should a hunter or outdoorsman own? If you guys have some essential reading tips.
Brody, what do you got?
Jeez.
Those two right there. No, the whole MeatEater library.
That's right.
There you go.
It's a good place to start.
Yeah.
The entire MeatEater library. I like to tell Steve this sometimes because it makes him feel old, but I read his first book when I was in college. So that's like
Scavenger's Guide.
No, it was the volume 1 of the Hunting and Fishing
Guide.
Yeah,
was Small Game volume 1 or Big Game? I can't remember. But those two,
Big Game.
I mean,
was.
literature is like there's literature and then there's like guidebooks. Not that they're, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I'm with you.
Like, if you want some cool like.
Sand County Almanac.
Yeah.
That's definitely a good place to start.
What's his name? Cool Adventure Stories. Capstick.
Yeah.
Those are
Peter
cool.
Capstick.
Robert Ruart's real
spelled like
good.
chapstick, which is weird, right?
No, I don't
Isn't there
think
an
so.
H in there? Oh, man, I'm thinking of something else.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Some of that
Robert
stuff.
Ruart's good.
Ruart's good.
Zane Grey.
Yep.
He's got some good.
Thomas
hunting and
McGuane
fishing
has some
adventures.
good fishing stuff. He's even got a couple of good hunting stories.
What else you got, Phil?
Jared is asking for for a pertinent tip here. He's North Alabama is expecting snow and ice starting tomorrow around 6 a.m. He's asking if he should hunt this evening or focus on a morning hunt after a possible storm.
Hunt both.
So the snowstorm is coming at 6 a.m. Should I hunt this evening or focus the morning hunt? I feel like a lot of big buck killers would tell you that whitetails know when there is a front coming, and they will act on that, and they'll be on their feet more. It would take, a lot of tracking and journaling to actually prove that out. But like I said, common whitetail hunting knowledge would say that they're really going to be moving this evening because they also know what the forecast is.
Mm-hmm. I found that to be true. And then during the storm, sure, you can go and find them, but it can just be kind of miserable and they're not on their feet. It doesn't seem like quite as much. They can be huddled in some hole somewhere. Mm-hmm. But right when it breaks, it's going to be good.
Yeah. Anything else, Phil?
Yeah, we got a couple more, but let's just do one for now. I guess this is a question for Giannis or anybody, but Nate's asking if there's a price difference for a pillow mount.
I don't know what the price difference is, but that pillow mount, in my mind, was not cheap. It was about $1,400.
Okay.
Gotcha.
Which is probably what you'd pay for an elk shoulder mount, something like that.
Yeah.
You'd know, Spencer.
Well, we did. I've only shoulder mounted one critter in my life, but I would know because we had a trivia question one time about the average price of a shoulder mount. And I think I looked at 20 different taxidermists all across the country, and I don't remember the exact number, but it was
right around
$687, something like that was the average price. So you get, a couple big old whitetail shoulder mounted or one Bobcat pillow. I think I'd go with the Bobcat pillow. Those are significantly more rare.
Yeah, and much easier to move around.
Right. Yeah, if you got a life-size mount of that thing, in some habitat, it'd be at least as much, but you wouldn't have. It'd be you put it there, it's there forever.
Yeah.
To answer one of the questions that we had about books that outdoorsmen should read, this is something we've written a lot about on the MeatEater.com. I'm going to read you some headlines here. You can just go to our website, type in books, and you're going to get all these results. 4 books every whitetail hunter should read. 6 more books every whitetail hunter should read. Those were Mark Kenyon. The best books for outdoor kids. 8 books every hunter should read. That was Steve. 5 must-read fly fishing books. That was Mark Kenyon. Brody, a couple times, wrote, Ask MeatEater, what are your book recommendations? Part 1 and 2. We had Mark do another article, the ultimate recommended reading list for hunters. So that'll answer your question much more thorough than we just did.
Nice.
All right. Our next segment is Hot Tip Off.
H-O-T-T-I-P-off. Turn your head and give cough. What's that face? Don't you scoff. There aren't many words that rhyme with off.
H-O-T-T-I-P-off. Let's all do a hot tip off. H-O-T-T-I-P-off. Let's all do a hot tip off.
Wow, never did I think Chapel Roan would get a shout out on the MeatEater airwaves.
What's Chapel Roan?
She is the one who sings the song that Phil was doing a spoof on. H-O-T-T-O.
That's one of my more modern jingles.
Phil, I feel like you've got the potential to really get a Weird Al Yankovic career going.
Oh, that's so kind of you, Brody. I think it might be you're giving me a lot more credit than I think.
Oh, no, I don't think Brody's wrong at all. I think you're honestly, you're like, I mean, we love having you here, but you're not using your talents at what you could be doing.
Shut up, Yanni. Now, Phil, Yanni, you go home and you ask your daughters who Chapel Roan is.
Okay.
See what kind of answer you get. All right. Hot Tip Off is where 2 members of the crew go head-to-head with competing pieces of advice. And after we hear each tip, we'll declare which one is hotter. In the chat, we're going to listen to you guys as well. You let us know which hot tip you like better. Take it away, Phil.
Corey Calkins.
This is Corey Calkins, and I got another hot tip for you. I just killed a bull elk a couple days ago, and I got him hanging in my garage along with my mule deer buck that I shot a couple days before that. Perfect temp. It's like 38, 39 degrees in my garage. It's
humble fella,
ideal
that Corey.
for hanging. Had the deer hanging for about 5 days, the elk for 3 days now. Probably work on the deer first. By the time I'm done with my elk, it'll probably have hung for just about a week. But there's a little bit of hair residue left on this animal. It's so hard to keep all the hair off those animals in the field. So you could do this for hours and still not get all the hair off. Some of it's kind of stuck on there from the blood. But if you use a torch, which I know a lot of people use for waterfowl, getting some of those fine feathers off of ducks and geese, works really well for your red meat too. So hit it with a little heat, singe off some of these strands. Boom. See ya. Here's a front shoulder. Hair? What hair? See ya.
You can hear it sizzling. I like that.
Satisfying.
I can smell it too.
Save a little bit of knife work. Works so well.
Maggie Hudlow.
Welcome to another hot tip-off on MeatEater Radio Live. I'm Maggie Hudlow, and I'm joined by Bill here. We are talking about Bill's feet today, and my tip is
Bill is a dog.
how you protect hairy dogs' feet in the winter. So Bill has got some hairy Grinch paws on him, and they collect ice balls like son of a gun in the winter. So the best thing that I've found, because booties aren't working.
Bill! Bill! What have you got? Huh?
And I'm not doing that. I'm not putting them in those silly little overall things either. I'm not doing that to my dog. Best thing I've found is this. It's called Musher Secret, and it's a salve you got to put on. And you just make sure you get it up in this part of their paw, in between their toes, in all those places where the ice sticks. And then when they're out running around in the snow, they're not stopping all the time to, chew ice balls out of their feet, and you don't have to pick it out of their feet. And it's a better time for everyone. So hope that helps for somebody, and go on, get your dog outside. They need it, and you do too. Sit. See. All right, we're about halfway through our walk tonight. It's 15 degrees, and the temp is dropping. So let's check out Bill's feet. Come here, big horse. You can tell there's some snow in there, but it's not ice ball, so it's not hurting him. He's not getting sores. It's pretty much just loose snow, which sticks all over him anyway. So he's a happy dog.
All right, we're now going to discuss which tip we think was hotter. In the meantime, chat, get your votes in. Let us know if you think you like Corey's hot tip about torching venison hides, or if you like Maggie's hot tip about treating dog feet better. I'll go first. To me, Corey's feels like it's kind of well known. Like, I feel like most folks who have a deer hanging in their garage probably also know that you hit that thing with a torch. Now, I'm not a hairy-footed dog owner. I'm an aspiring hairy-footed dog owner, but I don't know if that one is as common or not. But I'm going to give my vote to Maggie. What do you guys think?
I'm kind of in the same boat. I knew about both of them, so I didn't learn too much today.
Okay.
But yeah, I don't know. I'm lucky Mingus doesn't need any salve in his feet.
My
Your dog probably does.
My dog does. And if you're hanging, I love Corey, but if you're hanging meat in your garage for a week, that meat is gonna develop a rind on it, a hard rind, and you're just gonna cut it off anyway.
Yeah.
So like a few hairs on it, not gonna hurt anything.
But you're like not bringing it, say you're bringing it into your kitchen. You're not bringing that mess into your cutting board, maybe.
What
so
mess?
I still do. Well, if you got hairs on there and they're rubbing off and everything else, I feel like I'm always hitting it with a torch. It's probably the only reason I own a torch, actually.
I never do.
So what are you voting for, Brody?
Maggie.
All right, it's unanimous in here. Phil, what is the chat?
It's definitely leaning Maggie, I gotta say. But also we have a private comment from an upcoming guest who says, "Torch the hair off the dog's feet." Boom.
Okay.
I wouldn't do that. Don't do that.
That's a good lead in. Our last interview is with Ben Dedimonte. But before we talk to him, we're going to show you a crazy video of Ben shooting a bull elk at 4 yards. Play the clip, Phil. You can see that video on this YouTube video, or you can go to Ben's Instagram at ShedCrazy to watch it. But here's the plot twist. Ben was the second of 3 guys to shoot that bull that day, and he's here now to talk to us about that unusual hunt. Ben, welcome to the show.
Hi, thanks. What's going on?
Hey, Ben, start from the very beginning of that hunt on opening morning.
Oh, yeah, it's Utah over the counter. It's a very low success hunt, low density of elk on the unit. And we had found some bulls kind of in a deserty area that were by themselves. And we were super hopeful that we'd have these bulls to ourselves, but it didn't actually turn out that way. We went out to the area to hunt these elk on opening morning, and we found the elk where they had been for basically the whole summer. We were watching them from across the canyon, and we sent one buddy in kind of on a stalk to get in the path of the bulls so that he'd be able to get an opportunity at them. And as we're watching these bulls come up onto this little plateau in the glass, I noticed another hunter there. And we'd never seen anybody out there during scouting, and it's not an area where very many people hunt, so I figured we'd maybe have it to ourselves. Anyway, we kind of sat back and watched it unfold. I threw the phone on the adapter on the Allin, and we started watching to see what would go down. Anyway, the elk, the way it was headed up, walked right to this other hunter. Just randomly happened to be on that path, and we were able to kind of get it on video. We saw him crouch down behind a rock and saw the elk walk in front of him at about 60 or 70 yards. And as the bull got kind of past him, it started to turn broadside, then it ended up kind of facing away, and that's the moment he shot. I think he thought it was going to go fully broadside, and he ended up hitting the bull through kind of the arm meat, below the shoulder, above the knee, and the arrow passed through that shoulder and was hanging out by the fletchings. And so obviously we were kind of bummed, thinking here's our bull that we're out here to try to hunt today, and he's now been shot by this other hunter. So we watched him run out.
How far were you watching this unfold from, Ben?
We were probably 1,500 yards away on a glassing knob. And so we had the spotters and everything set up, and we were just kind of kicked back. And we knew our buddy was somewhere in that area, but I didn't know exactly where. So we watched the bull. It runs out maybe 100 yards, stands around, puts some weight on its leg, starts walking normally. And it ends up traveling about another 1,000 or 1,500 yards and dropping into a small canyon. So we kind of sat back and thought, well, we'll just watch this play out, see what happens. We watched the other hunter, and for about 4 hours, he never moved to recover the bull at all and never went anywhere over in that direction. And so we sent a friend over just to check with him and see what his plan was. There was another bull with it as well. And they both kind of went down a little canyon together. And, these are the only 2 elk in this whole area. So we're thinking we still kind of like to hunt these elk. So we sent a friend to talk to the first hunter, and he said he had some people coming out to help him, and they were going to go recover this bull. And we let him know that it was hitting the leg, and he thought that he had hit it in the body cavity. So there was kind of a little moment there where we didn't, a misunderstanding, whatever. So during all this, the 2 bulls kind of split up. The other bull was this 1-horn 5-point, had 1 antler, and we were totally interested in hunting that elk. So we told the other hunter, we're going to go in and try to kill that 1-horn bull, and I guess we'll see what happens. So where the video kind of kicks in is I'm moving in to shoot this 1-horn 5-point. And as I walk up to the edge of the cliff there, I realize the 6-point that this other hunter has hit is now right below me. He's moved back around underneath the ledge, and he's just posted up right there. By the time I knew he was there, he was already 20 yards or less away from me. So I just went, well, here's a bull. He's obviously hit. I'm going to walk in there and I'm going to finish the deal, and then we'll work it out. So So you see me walking to the edge there. The wind is just absolutely ripping up out of that canyon. I walk off, shoot that bull, and my fletchings actually kind of contacted the rock and hit the bull in the shoulder, but it penetrated through the shoulder. The bull spins and the arrow kind of backs out, and then it runs down the canyon. And so I'm kind of hectic. I'm like, oh, I need a follow-up shot for sure on this elk. And he runs down into the bottom of the canyon. So I start moving around parallel to get another shot at him. I actually took another shot there and just missed him because of the wind. It just blew the arrow clear off. And as I'm moving over towards him, I hear my buddy click on the radio who had, earlier in the day gone on the stock. And he says, hey, that bull just ran past me and I put a perfect arrow in it. So I'm like, all right, well, this is a, crazy situation now. We got 3 people who hit this bull, but I'm super glad that, the elk is at least down. And this is only just a couple minutes after I had hit it. So I walk to the edge and the bull is kind of like expiring. I think my friend put one more arrow in it and the whole ordeal was done. So that's kind of the whole story of how that bull got killed. But insane to have 3 people. I mean, when I posted on Instagram, I was like, this is standard Utah over-the-counter stuff, because it seems like this is how stuff happens on these over-the-counter units. But it did kind of turn into a little bit of a social media debacle after that. The first hunter, he came down, and I wasn't there for this part. I had gone back to get the truck, but had a bit of a confrontation with my friend who was the third shooter in this scenario. And he ended up putting a post on Facebook, and it went viral, kind of like, I guess, defaming the third hunter. And it turned to this big, ugly ordeal. So luckily, we had...
What was his problem with the whole thing?
He thought that we should have, well, obviously, I think his biggest problem was that I went in there when the bull was wounded, right? He thought, I should have backed out totally. And in hindsight, everything being what it is, I may have done that. Like, my intention was to shoot this other bull, and then it just kind of worked out the way that it did.
Yeah.
I don't blame him for being frustrated, but he was able to look too and see where he'd hit the elk. And when we, obviously we're butchering the bull, we saw where my arrow entered, we saw my buddies, and we saw where he had hit it. And there was nothing close to fatal on the shot that he had taken.
Tell us one more time, Ben. Tell us one more time where all 3 of these arrows wound up in the thing, from the first hunter, you, and then the third hunter.
So the first hunter hit it below the shoulder and above the knee, so kind of through the arm meat, from the back to the front, and the arrow was hanging out the front here. I hit the bull in the shoulder blade, and it got through, and it hit, for sure hit the close side lung. I don't know if it got into the offside lung. And then my buddy hit it just perfect square in the lungs. And so when we all talked about that, when we looked at the bull, we just decided that, my buddy put the most lethal arrow on it. He was the last shooter. I didn't feel like I had any claim on the bull because I'm just the middle guy in this giant cluster, you know what I mean? So I decided, and my buddy decided, that he should tag it, and him tagging it really, upset this kid, and they ended up having a bit of a confrontation over it. So it all ended up kind of going bigger than we wanted it to. An officer from the Fish and Game came out and investigated it after the post went viral on Facebook, and he said there was no wrongdoing, and everything got worked out in the end. And what we ended up doing that I think really solved it is just got on the phone with everybody and with the other hunter and made some apologies, and everybody kind of just walked away from it and let it be. But it was just like one of those scenarios you hope to never run into, and you would never walk into intentionally on public land, but kind of got out of control. And that's kind of why, this happened back in August, and I haven't shared a ton about it because it's such a wild scenario and it just kind of feels weird. But anyway, that's the story.
Tell us about the messaging of the Facebook post and how hunter number 1 had sort of portrayed the event.
Yeah, so he basically said, I shot this bull, I went to blood track it. When I found it, there was somebody else gutting it. That was his story he put on Facebook. He said it was about an hour later. And so he made it seem like he'd made a fatal shot, and that he went to recover the bull and somebody else was there. And so I had footage, from the whole scenario, from him shooting to me shooting to us recovering it with timestamps. And so I had to eventually put together a little YouTube video that I could share for context for the people who were kind of wrapped up in the whole drama of the situation. And as you guys know, when anything happens and it gets out there on the social media world, it can just spiral so fast.
And how much time had passed between hunter number 1 shooting the elk and then you wind up going on a stalk and coming upon it?
5 hours. So he shot it right around 7 a.m. and I shot it right at noon.
And what was his plan to recover this bull or to get another arrow in it?
He just said that he was waiting for his dad and some friends to come out and help him look for it, and then they were going to go after it. But I don't know exactly what he was wanting to do. Like from his angle, he couldn't see the bull, and we could see it up the canyon. And we told him, we're like, when our friend went over and talked to him, told him it's on its feet. It's not hit bad. It's just acting like an elk. So it turned into this whole ordeal. But
did he was he optimistic that he was going to recover this thing? Did he think he had put a lethal shot on it?
I don't know, because he had video too of the bull after the shot. So I think he was kind of maybe in a spot where I think he told his friends that he'd hit it fatally and hit it good. But then maybe when he reviewed through the footage, he knew that he didn't. So he kind of had to have a moment too. And he looked at the elk, and with the officer and everything, they said, well, if you hit this bull vitally, there'd be a hole right here, and there's not. So, and they basically had to kind of come to an agreement on that. But it was dumb, and it was kind of ugly. But it's just, I mean, the video that I got out of it was kind of cool. But all in all, hindsight being what it is, I probably would have handled it a little bit different and just maybe chilled out a little more and went to him again or something. I don't know.
And what was the game warden's messaging towards you? Because he had talked to you not before they went and looked at the carcass, right? He had talked to you afterwards?
Yeah, he called me after they'd done an investigation, and he's like, just wanted to let you know, like, I've been out there. We looked over the carcass and everything. There was absolutely no wrongdoing that I can find there. There's nothing illegal. There's no legal issue here at all. So it's just kind of something that hunters have to work out in that scenario. As it's been figured out in the past in Utah, I guess it's not a law, but more of a precedent. The person who puts a final arrow or finishes off the animal is the one who supposedly has the right to claim it. That's how it's been decided in the past.
Okay. Yeah, I feel like it all went the right way, especially hearing that you guys had a little Zoom meeting and everybody apologized, and so everybody's happy or at least like stable now.
Yeah, we're all on good terms, and the thing too is I live in a small town. These are local guys, so the last thing I want to do is start a big local stink,
Yeah.
So yeah, we're all on good terms with it, and I think sure the first shooter is disappointed, and nobody's happy that post ended up going viral with names in it, but it is what it is at the end of the day. Can't undo it.
Yeah, and how I came upon your story, Ben, was I saw that video on Instagram, which is an epic stalk with just like the wind ripping like it is. And you said you can see your bow moving. That's not the wind doing that. You're trying to counter the wind to keep your arrow on the rest, right?
Yeah, my arrow keeps blowing sideways out of the rest, and it almost came out of the cage there even. So I keep shaking it sideways to keep it down in. And it hadn't been that windy all day, but it was just like the last maybe 5 minutes of that stalk. It just really kicked up out of the canyon. It was wild.
Yeah. Ben, this is the kind of over-the-counter experience that guys joke about, but doesn't, ever really happen where three different dudes shoot the same elk.
Yeah, well, I mean, sadly around here it does happen, and it's not that uncommon. I think in my years of hunting over the counter elk in Utah, this is the third bull that multiple groups have been a
put
part
arrows
of.
into.
Well, no, the other two were rifle bulls, but
yeah.
This is more unique in that fact for sure.
Yeah, we hear that down here in Montana too. I got a question for you. I know you hit a rock a little bit, but it looks like you hit the shoulder blade. It's probably what limited your penetration. Are you gonna have to change your arrow because of what you saw there? Or are you pretty happy with the penetration you got?
Well, I don't know if I'm going full like 1,000 grain ranch fairy status or anything like that, but I definitely I know that I have a heavy arrow. I have a long draw. I shoot 73 pounds, and I'm not worried about my setup at all in that scenario. It was just more. It also did kind of hit that ridge of the shoulder blade, that heavy part of the shoulder blade.
Yeah.
To me, it's like most scenarios that arrow is going to do the trick. But I just need to not shoot him in the shoulder. That's the biggest thing.
All right, Ben. Well, thanks for joining us to share this story, and good luck with shed hunting this year.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
Thanks, Ben.
All right, that brings us to the end of this week's show. Phil, let's get some final feedback from the chat.
Yeah, last chance to get questions in. So if you have a question you would like answered, type it in right now into the live chat. Let's see here. I'll get this one out of the way. Lantern Lab says that they need a clip of me making the jingles. It takes a lot to embarrass me these days. You will never see video footage of me making the jingles.
I don't think anyone in the office has seen you making the jingles.
No, Randall walked in on me a few weeks ago, and I made him leave. Even Dr. Randall cannot see me. Oh, it happens right here, right behind this desk.
Magic is made.
Yeah, you'll never witness it. You just have to be in your imagination, which is way better.
That could make so much money for this company, Phil.
Do you have to stand up to sing, Phil?
Okay, here's the thing. So for the Chapel Roan one today, I tried because sitting down I couldn't get the energy out. But the mic wasn't flexible enough, so I had to kind of do like a weird half crouch, which is so that sounds like terrible and stupid, right? You're not going to see me half crouching, shrieking Chapel Roan into a microphone. I'm sorry.
It'd be so
unless
good.
you go to karaoke on Thursday nights, downtown Bozeman.
Yeah, after 2 IPAs at the Eagles, then you can see me shrieking into a microphone. This might be like a. Maybe this is just common courtesy stuff for hunters, but I'm curious. Rashad's asking if you're with a hunting buddy that's trying to shoot a deer and he falls asleep. Do you shoot the deer or do you wake your pal up?
Oh, man, that's a good Chester.
Shoot the deer.
Chester question.
Yeah. Shoot the deer.
Yeah, I don't know that there's a specific answer for that.
Yeah, it's situation dependent.
Unless your buddy's narcoleptic, you just shoot that deer, Rashad.
Or it depends on how good of a buddy he is to you.
Yeah.
Depends on what kind of deer you're looking at.
I think
that too. If it's the Kansas State record, buddy, screw him.
I think I'd wake up Giannis to tell him, "Hey, I'm about to shoot this deer," but I'm not letting Yanni talking me how to shoot.
Get him in your binos and tell me where I hit him.
On turkey hunts with my kid, naps on turkey hunts.
Oh yeah, the kids sleep all the time.
I tell my son, if you're asleep when a gobbler comes in, I'm shooting it.
Oh, is that is that genuine?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
He's going to wake up to a gun blast.
Yep.
Learn the hard way.
That'll teach him.
Fruit of the Mycelium is asking if there's a meat quality difference between a spring or a fall black bear. For context, he'll be in, or she will be in the Oregon Cascades. Bears have no access to fish, but lots of berries.
Yeah,
they're debating a
definitely.
spring
Huge
versus fall hunt.
Huge difference, I think. Fat, flavor, everything, man. Fall bear's generally going to be better.
Yanni, anything to add?
No. Brody's got it.
Yeah. All about what that thing's been eating for the last month.
I think maybe something, at least like where we down in Colorado with like that thick oak brush and stuff like that, they can be harder to find in the fall.
Yeah. Well, there you can't hunt them in the spring anyways.
That's true, but
this is Oregon Cascade. But yeah, I would there. I just think in the spring you're going to end up with a skinnier. I mean, you killed a spring bear once that was loaded with fat, but on average, that's not normal.
Not normal.
So I would definitely go for a fall hunt if you could.
Cool. I don't know how detailed you guys want to get, but Jeff's asking for a show and tell segment of everyone's big game rifle setup. I don't think that really needs to be a show and tell setup, but if you guys have some like basic kits you go out with.
Yanni, what have you been shooting this year?
Nobody really talks about their hunting rigs. Last couple years, been hunting with the Sig Cross. Both my girls shot their bucks and my daughter shot a Wisconsin doe too with the Sig Cross, which is why I like that gun because it is so modular that I can make a few adjustments. I can shoot it and then make it compact. And
that folding stock, man.
Yeah, you can pack it away real easy. And I have two of them. One of them's got the Whiskey 6, I believe, on it. One of them's got the Tango scope on it. And they're both chambered in 6.5 Creedmoor. And I'll even shoot those at an elk as long as it's not too far away. That's the hunting rig right now.
Yeah, this year I was shooting the Cross Magnum Sawtooth in a 7 PRC, and this is like my first fall using a Magnum caliber on most of my hunts, and it made me realize with that muzzle brake on there, I need to get a can for that thing. Damn, that thing hits hard.
Yeah,
hits my ears hard.
I shot my moose with the Sawtooth Magnum in 300 Win Mag, and 3 of us couldn't hear for 2 days after that.
Oh man!
But also running an MDT Hunt 26 stock with a Tika 6.5 PRC, and that's a real nice deer hunting rig, elk hunting rig.
Yeah. I think that the common denominator here is we're all shooting guns we're very confident with, which is, what matters most. You go out there, when you put the crosshairs on something, you're going to kill it dead.
Mm-hmm.
What else you got, Phil?
Yeah, let's do one more because this one's light. Chris is asking for honeymoon destination ideas in the U.S. Probably for outdoorsy folks. Do you guys have any tips? Where'd you guys go on your honeymoon?
This guy already looks like he's got 2, 3, maybe 4-year-old kids, man. It's a little late for the honeymoon.
Maybe he's asking for someone else.
Oh,
yeah, maybe.
Maybe he got married during COVID and they just had to push it
Alaska. Go to Alaska. Well, it depends on the time of year, too, right?
Max just went to Alaska for his honeymoon.
Where'd you go on your honeymoon, Brody?
Went to Belize.
Oh.
I went to New Zealand.
Oh.
Yeah.
I went to New York City.
There you go.
Mine was definitely a fishing vacation, for sure.
I mean, there's so many places. I mean,
Yeah.
same place I'd go take my kids for spring break. You could go on honeymoon. I don't know, go to the desert and go backpacking. Go to North Carolina and fish the Outer Banks. Go to Maine. Go to some state you've never been.
There you go.
Yeah.
I would just say go on an adventure. Don't go on some cruise.
Yeah.
Save that for when you're an old person. Go on an adventure with your gal.
I love a good road trip, and I've really taken to the PNW the last few years. Now that we only live like a 10-hour drive away, driving up and down the coast, Oregon, Washington, Northern California. Nothing else like it as far as places I've been.
Love it.
Anything else, Phil?
No, let's call it there.
All right, that's the end of the show. But after we say goodbye, Phil is going to play Chester's newest song, which is available on Spotify right now. I've already added it to a bunch of my playlists. Chester didn't even ask for this plug. Didn't even really tell us that it existed. I just
son of a bitch.
saw it on Spotify, listened to it, and I was like, damn it, Chester. That's delightful.
It's a good song?
It's a good song.
I can't wait to hear it.
And I told Chester, I didn't ask him, I said, we're going to play this at the end of MeatEater Radio this week.
Phil, you need to cover one of Chester's songs.
Oh, I wouldn't disrespect him in that way.
All right, so after we say goodbye and the rock music plays, Phil is going to play for you Chester's newest tune.
Thanks, everybody, for tuning in.
See you next week.
Is this the wrong side of heaven or is it just me? Yeah, this is hell's anxiety. She left me in the room alone and took the dog and said let him go. Please come back, no, 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 babe. Well, I'm not the man you always thought I'd be. Yeah, living on the edge of sanity. I haven't had a drink in about 6 weeks. Refrained from the pints with all my might. I left the car and took Ike's bike outside. So cheers to beers, a brand new year. Say a toast, I love you the most. Shoot some pool with your fools. Tell a couple of lies with my guys. Well, I took that bike that I stole from Mike down to the tavern where I just might spend 3 weeks since you called. I figure it don't matter anyhow. Can take the sober getting over you. So cheers to beers, a brand new year. Say a toast, I love you the most. Shoot some pool with your fools and tell a couple of lies with my guys. Now I'm cruising down this hill on them 18-inch wheels. Never got much slack, but the night wind's got my back. Cruise along on this moonlight day, 7th gear, trying to keep her straight. Tears all dry from going so fast. Baby, it's a lesson learned in the past. Going down with the stars tonight. Yes, I'm going down with the stars tonight.